When we say assessment, or you hear assessment, what are you hoping for, in your child?
Are they where they should be at age level? If not, what can parents do to help? I want assessment to tell me where they are on grade level standards. I want feedback to be timely. Math in intermediate specifically, everything lives in the binder and I see it in June. ILS assessment maybe twice a year. I would be interested to have them do the multiple intelligence test again later. Since they may not understand the questions pre-K, also how do they rank with other children? Basically, are they on track or not? And I want to know if they learn the unit material.
So when we talk about assessment, it means a lot of things to everybody. We still are accountable, and we need to know where children are, and assessments kind of gives you a bird's eye view at that particular time. So questions we have about assessment, besides those are very, very good. I mean, that really gives us a starting block. But, other questions and comments we have about assessment.
Are you getting to the same answer multiple ways? Does that make sense? Like you're asking wanting the same outcome, but at a different angle?
Okay.
For the different learners, maybe?
What do you do after the assessment? What is the follow-up, maybe? I don't know how you want to phrase it.
One of my questions was, if my child is behind, what can I do to help them?
I know that the assessments come, the big assessments come at the end of every trimester, but I'm sure you guys are assessing a lot more often than that. How is that done?
Mary Ann's going to talk a little bit about formal assessment, versus informal assessment, and that might answer some of the questions about what other assessments are done.
So basically it boils down to two. We have formal assessments here, which is the STAR test, and your trimesterly assessments. Informal assessments, actually we're assessing your child every minute of every day. There's different ways that we do that. A lot of it is through observation. So if I see a student that is having trouble with a job or has come to me with a piece of work that is very incorrect, then the next step will be to give them another lesson on the job to find out what they were thinking, have them talk me through what they were doing. So that's immediate correction. Also with the goal book in elementary and in primary too when they're young sixes. That gives us an idea of what they're completing in their day and then what quality of work they're having. So at the end of the day, that half an hour is basically a small assessment for every child. And you have a mini conference with every child. So every child comes up, and when you do their goal book, you talk to them about their work, you look through it all again, even though you checked it or a teacher's checked it earlier in the day. So that really helps to see, what's happening next. And so when you have that mini conference with each student and you look at everybody's work over the course of the day or week, that helps you plan what's going to happen next. So if one student is having trouble with one specific math topic, say DS. So dynamic subtraction is really, really haunting that student. That one student may stick with dynamic subtraction while also going on to multiplication and division and everything else, but they're going to stick with that topic until that they master it. And that's what you're going to see. What's different from some other schools is that they will go through the curriculum just in order. They'll just keep going in one order, and if a student really doesn't get it, there's no going back. There's some remedial here and there, but they just keep building and building and building. We do it concurrently, where if the student is having trouble with one concept, that doesn't mean we don't give them new concepts. It just means they hang on to that concept until we know that they have it. You really have to think about it if you're going to say, okay, I'm comparing grade here to grade here. You look at it at the end of the year and say, what has my child learned then? The assessments too, the big formal assessments are obviously the STAR tests for students second grade and up. But also in elementary we do, and in primary we do trimesterly formal assessments that have a rubric that are based on the California state standards. So if you are interested in what your child needs to learn this year, if you go on the CDE website, it has all of the standards for every grade, for every subject, and so it shows you what they will learn. So basically we're holding our expectations to not only those standards, but the standards that we've devised here at ACA with the Montessori philosophy. Same thing with intermediate. They have the work of the week, which is giving them a weekly assessment of how much they're doing, what they're doing. I can't go on to say any more about how that's communicated to parents. I don't know, Amy, if you want to.
Sure. It's in the learning goals folder for what they have highlighted and signed off. Then we keep as teachers the sort of a master list of what they get checked off, which we're also making changes to. In the past it's been by week. So week 1, these are the kids and these are the assignments that got checked off, and we're trying to do it in a more user-friendly way where it's one sheet per child. So, baby A has their name, and then these are all the assignments, and these are all the weeks of the trimester. So if at any point you wanted to know, hey, is my kid avoiding language arts, or is my kid avoiding math, or is my kid avoiding something, that could be something that we could scan and email home to you that fast, or take a copy and send it home with a kid or something. So we're working on having that be an easier communicative piece between, classroom and home.
That no news is good news really is true, because if your child is having trouble in a particular area that we don't think that they are going to overcome in just school hours, we will let you know and say, hey, can you guys work on a little bit extra at home? But because we go at their own pace, sometimes they really just need 3 months to work with DS while they're learning everything else. And then as long as they're getting it within our timetable and we're confident that they're going to be able to move on and move past that, that's not a problem. So if there's something like, say, your child needs to do some reading practice at home, we'll let you know. That'll come home on the report card as one of their goals, especially on the report card. If there's 2 goals, anything like that is something that you can work on at home. Or if I say in casually, hey, maybe they can do some reading of this level. We do give formal reading assessments talking about reading. Each teacher does, at least at the beginning and end of the school years, for students that we're kind of watching their reading. We'll give them multiple times. Do you remember the name of the reading assessment we give?
Basic reading inventory.
There you go. And that gives us a ballpark of what their reading grade level is.
I think we're going to go on. Michelle's going to, she's kind of have a little, it's like a little worksheet about STAR testing interpretation. When you get the letter, which will be early August.
So I'm really just going to go over, the state provides a guide to the STAR testing report. So some people may not have ever seen a STAR testing report come home yet. So we're just going to kind of walk through what to look for when you get it. How STAR testing works is we take the test, we ship them off to Indiana, I think we decided. They all get scored. So the second grader whole booklet has to go through the machine to get scanned for every student in the whole entire state of California. So it's a very laborious process. And so we typically get our results somewhere around the first or second week of August. And we get a copy for the school and a copy for you. And then we have to fold them, stuff them in envelopes, and mail them off to everyone. So typically you don't get the results till about the first day of school. Box number 1 at the very top is just going to be your child's name and your address. Box number 2 is going to be a little letter from the state superintendent. And then the part number 3 is kind of the big part. That's a little graph, and it's going to show you, based on those 3 days we tested in your child's life, this is where they scored. And there'll be a colored column that shows you the different levels. There's 5 different levels. It goes from far below basic to basic to proficient to advanced. So that's going to show you where your child fell. And then below that, section number 5 at the very bottom of the page will give you some suggestions of ways the state suggests your child could improve based on those scores. And that could be an area, if you are interested, in coming in and talking to your student's teacher and saying, okay, I see on the test they suggested they need help with multiplication. What can we do? What's the plan? How's that going to work? And we're looking at these also, so we're knowing what the state is saying. Then if you flip your page over, the back side to me is the actual important side. The back side of the report is going to show you from the test, break it down into the actual sections. So the reading comprehension section. And how many questions did they get right? And where was it that they were having maybe holes that need to be focused on? So when we get the reports, we're going to look through those and we're going to see, did all the students that took the second grade test miss a certain area? Was there something that when we taught it, the whole group of them missed? And that's how we're going to plan our curriculum and figure out where to go from there. How can we improve so that everybody's not missing the same thing next year? And also then your individual child, what holes were there and how can we plan to make sure that next year we can fill those holes in? I would recommend checking in with the teacher because, as this little page says repeatedly, this is a limited test. It's 3 days. It doesn't show you their true knowledge.
This leads us into WASC, because WASC is a huge piece, but the one piece that happens to be D, that is assessments. And that's where we're looking at all of our assessments, but when we look at the STAR test, we're looking at whole school on the back of this. So real quick on the WASC, there's a rubric, and there'll be 4 pieces to the rubric. I just wrote down what the WASC is looking for in the rubric of assessment. But they're looking as, is assessment really an integral process to learning for the students? Is there evidence of formal and informal data? And that's what we are checking right now with all grade levels. What are they testing? And every test that we use, we're kind of making those lists now. Do we use assessment to identify appropriate strategies and activities to improve instruction? Do we use assessment information to develop goals and curricular development and even professional development for staff? So that's where we're headed. I mean, assessment has always been part of schools, but we're headed, in a WASC direction as well. And just to see where we're fitting.